Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ruben. I am your host for today. We're going to be having a little bit different format here. I have no singular tips or tricks for you. The purpose of this video is just something I've been wanting to do. I'm on my way to pick up somebody from the airport. They just got back on vacation from a sunny place in the United States, and now I got to bring them to an unsunny and cold place where I live, Wisconsin. And I was like, hey, this is the opportunity to make the video I've been wanting to make, which is where I kind of just share with you my experiences of the last year with some of the general knowledge that I've gained. So this is going to be a longer format. It's not, I don't have a script or anything. It's completely 100% off script. I have no notes. I'm just going to be talking. That's all I'm going to do is you and I, we're just going to have a heart-to-heart talk here. I'm just going to share not the specifics, tools I use, but rather the experiences I've had, because that is just as important. Okay, so this is going to be a longer video too, so I want to give all these warnings, right? Because I just do. Now that's a minute and 20 in, I think it's time to start on the topic. Who are you? This is a question I've struggled with my entire life. To say that I suffer from imposter syndrome, you know, I mean, is an understatement, right? Or I should say I have suffered. I am much better now than what I was. I'm much more willing to accept me, who I am. And that is all because now I have a much better understanding of who I am. And that's all happened over the past year. And I do want to preface this again with the fact that when I was unconscious before, and when I use this term unconscious, what I'm going to mean is me prior to, I'm just going to call it the awakening from last year. Now, I don't want you to think that, you know, when I say awakening, it's kind of in the sense that some enlightened people use on YouTube, because it's not that. I'm not enlightened. In fact, all I am right now is grounded. That's all I am, is I finally have a grounding in myself. There's still another step to go, another big step for me, for enlightenment. And maybe I won't get to it in this lifetime, and that's okay. But my awakening was just to the grounded state. Some people are born in the grounded state, you know. That's the where I had to get. And for me, that was a huge undertaking. But I just want to use that term, get some of these terminologies out of the way so I can talk freely. So back when I was unconscious, right, I'd be reading books, I'd just be consuming them. Think of me as my soul, my body, everything I was a giant mouth, a giant maw, like in Dungeons and Dragons, right? The infinite maw that just consumed everything, had a burning fire in it, and the fire never quenched. It never digested anything, right? It never, you know, considered anything except for getting more to keep the fire burning. That was what I was. It didn't matter if it was alcohol, gambling, video games, you know, even work. There was a time, you know, I'll talk about this in a later video. I don't want to talk about this today, but there was a time where I did very well, you know. I don't want to say very well. I did fairly well financially for me, because I had become so wrapped up in a job. But I had the same characteristics, right? It just happened that I turned all of those obsessive compulsive tendencies towards work 100%. And that was good for the job, but it was terrible for me as a person, my stress, my soul, my being, everything, right? And I stopped blaming my job. It wasn't my job's fault. It was my fault. And now I look at it and I'm like, boy, you know, not that I would have done a better job per se, but perhaps I could have done the job just as well and been more mindful. But we'll talk about that another day. I want to talk about the awakening. And again, for me, awakening is grounded. So before, when I was unconscious, I'd read information, I'd read all this stuff, and I'd never take it in. It was just consumption. It was just more, getting more into that fire. That's all it was keeping the fire burning. And I knew this. This had been, I don't know, 30 years of my life. But the problem was, even though I was unconscious, I was starting to realize this, right? And the fire was literally burning me out on life. And there's times where I just like, is this all there is to it? Is this all I am? You know? But the fire was so demanding and it consumed me so much that 95% of my attention was to that fire. Right? It's just how it was. And when I had my awakening, right? And for me, the awakening wasn't one moment. I guess you could say in a way it was. It was the decision to change, to make honest change. But when I had this awakening, right? Where I finally said, okay, I'm awake now. I'm conscious. I'm going to start taking in things and considering it, right? And it didn't happen just like that. But for me, one of the biggest things was understanding who I am. I'd like to say who we are, but it's hard to say that for me. I always feel like technically I shouldn't say things like that because, you know, maybe you're someone different and you have a different view. So I'll just keep it with who I am. And who I am is I'm not my thoughts, and I'm not the voice in my head. And for me, that was a game changer. But in order to get to that point, I had to do all the tips and tricks I'm giving you in the other videos. I had to introduce mindfulness into my life. Again, when I was unconscious, I read that stuff before, but it just didn't process. I might think about it for 5 minutes, but it wouldn't matter because then I had to go consume more information. But now I understand it because I put in tips and tricks into my life. I started meditating. And when I would meditate, I say, who is this voice in my head? Right? That's tormented me for so long. Sometimes it's been good. I don't want to say it's always been bad, but for me at that point, most of my thoughts were negative. I look back, I hate saying that. It's true. I just gotta be honest with it. But yeah, so I'd look inside and I say, where is this voice coming from? When I would be meditating. And I was in the early stages, I was so sense-based, and I still am, that when I still do this, because I still like to look, I'd look inside my head and I could feel the muscles of my eyes firing to try to turn and literally look in my head. That is how sense-based I am, right? I could kind of feel like my skin, like everything, all my senses, my physical being try to turn inwards to kind of invert itself, right? And find who this voice was. But I could never find where that voice was coming from. And that actually, it wasn't a bad thing, because that brought the realization that I wasn't that voice. You might say, wait, you found nothing. That's right, I didn't find the source of that voice. But what I found in my looking was that there is something, I don't know how to put it, and I'm probably saying this word wrong, Advaita Vedanta, they would call it the observer. Some people just call it consciousness. There is something else. And that something else has to be there because it's listening to that voice. So right now when I talk in my head, I understand that. Because if I was that voice, right, how am I listening to it and able to consider back to it? But the thing is the other thing doesn't have a voice. It just observes things, right? And you can do this with your thoughts too. When you have these thoughts come in your head and they first tell you, let these thoughts go, you're like, how do I do that? Well, the problem is you're identifying with your thoughts. I mean, that was me. I identified with my thoughts. These thoughts come in my head. They're me. That's who I am. Oh. Then guess what happens? You have intrusive thoughts, and they're bad thoughts. Then I'm a terrible person, right? Oh my gosh, I'd have a crazy thought, like when my first son was born, I'd have this thought that I'm gonna drop him. I didn't want to hold him because I thought I'm just out of nowhere, I'd just drop him. That thought would come in my head. And then I'd be like, oh my God, I'm a terrible person. That's how my mind would work. That was the prison I had built for myself with my mind. But guess what? Now I found out when these thoughts come in your head, whoever that observer is in your head, you can just kind of look at it and say, oh, let it go. Because that's not you. You see, the physical body, and trust me, I was not one of these people. I was a skeptic all my life. But the physical body, it is extremely important. But it is a tool that the true you is utilizing. That's all it is. Okay? You are and you are not your body. There's this, if you've been watching my channel, then I'm interested in Hermeticism and Hinduism, even though I haven't said it. Probably from the images I made and some of the thoughts I made. But in Hermeticism, they have this idea of everything being half-truths. And in this case, this is the absolute truth, even though it's a half-truth. You are and you are not your body. I mean, I just can't put it any better than that, right? It's such a realization, right? This physical body is our interface to this physical world. I have no other interface besides this physical body. But this physical body is, every single part of it in a way, is just a tool for my true nature. And my true nature is, in a sense, unknowable. And when I say this, I know I wasn't going to say this earlier because you might not agree, but I'm just going to say it. Our true nature. Because it can't be any different in me than it is in you. And here's some growth for me right here. Because for me to say something like that, and this, it's tough. I'm a skeptic who's always questioned everything. And I say something for myself, I hate to put it on to other people, but this is one thing that I just cannot fathom that is not true for every single one of you. I don't see how it couldn't be. So when we look at this, the best way to think of it like this, and this is the realization I came to through meditation. And I had heard it before, but I never grasped it. But by experiencing that, by having that experience of meditation, trying to look for that person or that thing, where's that voice in my head coming from? You know, and I'm going to go on a tangent here, but that's okay because this is an informal discussion. Marvin Minsky wrote a book, The Society of Mind, where he said, if you found that voice, right? I find that voice, I find whoever's saying that voice. Well, wouldn't the speaker that's saying that voice, wouldn't, by logic, that person have to have an inner voice? And if they could, if I could find that voice, couldn't they find their voice? And so it would be an infinite loop, and a recursion, right? A voice finding voice, finding voice, finding voice, finding voice, finding voice. Ad infinitum. Forever. Which, if you think about it, another metaphysical way isn't really different than not being able to find a source. I mean, these things are so interesting, right? But anyways, let's get back to the point. So when I was doing this, I couldn't find the source, and that led me to this realization, right? Because what I realized while you're doing this and you're looking for it, right? What you realize, you might say again, well, if you didn't find it, how did you come to that realization? Well, because what you realize is that those things, though, they are just things. I don't know how to put it any other way than that. My thoughts, in a sense, are objects. And that voice is also a thing, an object. And there's something within me, some kind of effect, some kind of being, right? And I guess you could just call it being, that observes or it senses these objects. That's the realization that you come to. At least it's what I came to. And other people talked about this, and trust me, I was skeptical of it. I was. But I experienced it firsthand. Okay? And like I said earlier, even now, when I think about it, even if I would have found the source, like Marvin said, then that source would have to have a source. And essentially, you never find the source. And when I say this now, you might say those are two different things, but with the new worldview I have, I realize that all these things that are paradoxes like this, complete opposites, are really the same thing. And that's okay. That stuff used to bother me. It used to drive me nuts. Right? When I would have thoughts like that, the infinite, never quenched, non-quenchable fire within me would demand more information to figure it out. But now I can just let it be. I understand that some of these things are, simply put, they're unknowable. And that's okay. But it's led to great perspective. So like when I look at my hand is a part of my physical body. My hand is a tool. It is part of me, right? In a sense, you can say it is me. But we all know that I could lose my hand and I could still live, right? I'm not going to be done. I could even go get a prosthetic hand. Of course, it wouldn't work as good as the one I have here, but it would be here. So my hand is a part of me, but it's also not me. I can say that with my foot. I can say that with my arms, my legs. Well, what you find out when you do this type of meditating, this deep introspection, is you find out it is the same with your thoughts. Your thoughts are not you. And once you realize that, once you come to this honest realization, I'm 20 minutes in, I can't believe it. Guys, this is just an informal chat. So if you've made it this far, thank you for staying with me. But once you come to this realization, there is no greater relief in your life if you were in the type of prison that I was in. I had built a prison of my thoughts. And to understand that I imprisoned this observer within my thoughts. I had imprisoned my true nature within these thoughts. Thinking that I was these thoughts. Thinking that I was that voice. That was me. And for some reason, when those things went off the wire, and they said bad things, or when it was having negative thoughts, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? That I was morally tied to that thought or that voice's opinion. Understanding that is not me freed me from that. Lifted the greatest weight ever from my life. It's that simple. I mean, I could end the video right now, but I have a long drive, so I just kind of want to keep chatting about it. Want, desire, not always bad things. And I want to say something. Once I started doing these things I was talking about, bringing mindfulness into my life, reconnecting with my body, okay? Because the simple fact is that I didn't want to be in my body. You are and you are not your body. I'm not my body. That observer, that being, that isness, that consciousness, that whatever you want to call it, the divine spark, that is your true nature, is not your body. But your body is the only interface to this world that it has. So in a sense, it is your body. And so when you were in this prison I was in, where you think you're your thoughts and everything is negative, you try to block all of this out. I've talked about this before. I didn't, there was a moment I had where I looked up and I just literally, it's like, I don't want to feel anything. I don't want to accept it. And that was just that was another, on my journey of wake-up calls, that was another more awakening call. It's just like, hey, this is the only interface to this world I have. I have to accept this, right? It's fine. It's okay to have aches and pains and, this and that. It's not a big deal. You just accept it, right? It is what it is. And acceptance frees you. Frees you from the bondage, the prison that your thoughts and your mind can create for you. And then when you free yourself from this, the most amazing thing that happens is just it's unbelievable, is that your mind and thoughts actually start working for you. Okay? Because when I said, you're not them and all this stuff and how negative they were, well, guess what? Like my hand, like any object in this physical world, my mind and thoughts are not inherently bad in and of themselves. All they are is a tool. They're a tool that I utilize. And if it just so happens that they're a bad tool to come out and I'm having, intrusive thoughts, the voice is being negative, I can listen to it and I can just disregard it. Well, yeah, I don't want to listen to you. You can say what you want, but I'm not you. And then when you do that, if for some reason it's almost like the voice in your head, the tool is like, well, I want to be used. So almost it's like it stops being negative. Kind of like it starts being positive. Oh, it wants attention. It's the weirdest thing. I mean, I don't know if this is the same for everybody. I've heard and read other people going through it, but I've experienced it. Does that mean that I still don't have down periods? Of course not. I still do. But now I have tools to get out of them. Just the other day I had a period where, and I think it was brought on because I was using this new ChatGPT. I was kind of doing a project with it. And so I was staying up a little bit later. And as usual, I always get up at the same time just to ensure, that my sleep doesn't get too wonky. I was getting tired. It was late. I was probably sitting too long. I think for me, I need to get up and move a lot because I'll get really tight in my body. So anyways, these negative things were happening. And my tinnitus is tied very much to my central nervous system. And so I can tell when I'm stressed out or getting physically and emotionally stressed because my tinnitus will get louder. And so I'm sitting at the computer and I'm obsessing into this project and my tinnitus gets really loud. And so right away that brought a little anxiety. And I hadn't had anxiety in it'd been, I don't know, a little bit since I've had a kind of this feeling. And it was late and I was tired and I hadn't done my stretching yet. And so right away my mind went into these rapid intrusive thoughts. Oh, you haven't done your stretching, you're not gonna get your sleep, you're really teetering on the edge here, you're pushing. And so what I did was I said, okay, I just stopped thinking this stuff, started saying my mantra. I went back to the old one. I have many mantras, but whenever I have, kind of what I feel to be a stronger something arrive, I'll go back to the everyday and every way I'm getting better and better. For whatever reason, that's the one I started off with. It's one I read from someone else. I got it, and it just brings me a lot of comfort now. I have a lot of comfort associated with it. And I did my stretches. I said, okay, I have to accept that, my sleep is going to lose out here, but I need to do my stretches. I need to do something. So I did some stretches. I stopped the project. And even though I wanted to continue working on it, I stopped it because I knew it was too late. And that was it. I felt better. I went to bed, fell asleep, didn't have too many obtrusive thoughts, right? My mind kind of straightened itself out. So, I mean, it's a miracle how this works, right? Woke up the next day, I felt fine, Didn't have the brain fog that I used to have every single day of my life. Didn't have the voice come into my head, telling me what a terrible person I was for staying up late and doing this and that, and how I'm screwing up my life with these things, I woke up next day, okay, I'm gonna make a video today, finish that project with ChatGPT, get to my stuff, spend time with my kids, spend time with my wife, get some exercise, etc., etc. There is such power in this, okay? There is an incredible amount of power within you. And the thing is I'm barely there, right? I mean, I'm just starting to get grounded, Some of you out there, I mean, you're probably flying through the sky with wings. I mean, I'm not trying to be self-deprecating here, but I'm so excited. I'm just like, I know I'm at the beginning, and I have a lot of fears. Sometimes, right now, I think about it, I gotta take a breath because I get a little fearful at the thought of it. right? You might say, why? Well, because I hadn't done anything, so long, so it's hard to put yourself out there. But I'm starting to embrace it now. I look at it with opportunity, but of course I've got a little fear, but that's okay. I accept it. I move on. So that's where we're at. That voice in your head, it is absolutely 100% not you. Okay? And you don't need to be bound by it. None of you deserve that. If you're listening to this right now, I want you to know that. And the truth is, and we're going to get a little metaphysical here. Okay? The truth is that you do know that. You already know that. My voice that you hear right now, is it my voice that you're hearing, Ruben? Or is it something, a voice within your mind, a tool within your mind talking to you? This tool called your brain, it constructs this entire physical world, this reality that you participate in. So I would say that it's both. Okay, a little bit of hermeticism again here. It is my voice, Ruben's voice, and it is a voice within your mind that you are constructing. But if it's within your mind and you're constructing it, then you must already know the truths I'm telling you. And this is a thought from Hinduism also. I heard this in the Advaita Vedanta, or Advaita. I don't know how to say that word. That essentially, in a way, you already know everything, right? The true you already knows everything. The interface to this world is just simply it, just in a sense, remembering it or bringing these things out that it already knows. So, like I said, this is going to be a longer video. Let's move on now, because this is something I've been wanting to talk about for a while. Manifestation. This is where we can come into manifestation, because if we call that inner voice in us, if we call our true nature the aspect of the divine, some people call it consciousness, we can start to piece together how manifestation works. And I want to be clear, when I'm talking about manifestation, okay, when I was unconscious, pre-awakening, I was I was the biggest skeptic. Just how I was negative about everything, so I hear any thought, I was negative about it. And I was extremely negative towards manifestation. I mean, you're talking about a person who had absolutely no control of their own mind. So how could I believe others could manifest things into the world through theirs? But I have found out personally that manifestation absolutely is real. For me though, and when I say this, I'm just going to say for me, and this is something that will not apply to other people, I don't think it's exactly how it gets portrayed though, and by some people. Like, let's just say some people may portray it in the wrong way. I think it's very misunderstood how manifestation works. simply put, the reason I'm a believer now is that I understand that my thoughts are a tool. And so, whatever I do in this physical reality starts in my brain. Whatever activity, whatever thought I have, it manifests in my brain first. Let me give you an example. This YouTube channel, it didn't just appear and happen. I had a thought in my head. I'd been thinking for 6 to 7 months. I was trapped in the prison of my thoughts. Right? Finally, I got over that. I was at the point where I was ready. You know, I've been breaking bonds down. I've still got bonds in my head right now. I'm still someone in prison. Again, I haven't ascended. I'm just grounded. So I still have bonds I got to break free of so that I can fly. But when I was looking at this channel, I was so worried about so many things. These thoughts, they were trapping me. But finally, I just made a decision to just do it. So I'm just going to do it. And when I did that, a vision came into my head of what this channel would be. What was that vision? The vision was, I want to help people. I have experienced something that is truly near and dear to me. It means a lot to me. I feel like it literally and metaphorically saved my life. Okay? Because in a sense I was dead. I was asleep before. And so now I'm finally back to living. I haven't felt like this about life since I was a teenager. It's a good feeling. But I was like, I gotta share this with other people because maybe there's someone else out there that's stuck like me. In that same point I was. Suffering. Right? Because they identify with the thoughts in their head. They identify with their ego. I haven't used that term yet. So essentially, there's a notion that you can call the thoughts in your head, the voice in your head, you call that your ego, your worldly identity. So maybe there's other people out there like me, identified with their ego, and their ego is torturing them, like my ego was doing to me. It's torturing itself. Because essentially it can't torture your true nature, because your true nature is of the divine. When I say that, I don't want to turn anybody off in case they don't believe in that stuff like divine. When I say divine, you can either take it religiously or you can just take it as isness, whichever way you want to take it. Okay? So, if you're a believer in God, you can take it as being of God in that sense, or you can take it as just being isness. Myself, I think the two things are the same. I don't really think there's any difference to it. But anyways, that's neither here or there. That thought had come into my head, had manifested. I want to help people. And with that thought, came this channel. It manifested into being. Okay? And so that is what manifestation is. Manifestation is believing in a thought in your head, but it's also doing it. And so this is the issue that I think people don't understand. I used to always listen to Neville Goddard and these other things that would make you feel good. You know? Again, I wasn't processing it though. And I always remember him saying, I think he had one where he said, feeling is the key. Well, I had no feeling, so I couldn't feel. But the simple point is when you have a thought in your head, you have to feel that thought through. And what do I mean by that? You have to experience it as if it was real and act upon it as if it was real. And if you can totally feel like that, it will be real. Okay? I don't know how else to put that. It's, you know, it's hard for me to say it because I still am very, like I said, my past was a skeptic, so it's hard for me sometimes to explain these things that are really metaphysical in some sense. You know, in some sense they're mystical. But this one I think is very practical. So let me try it with this. I'm going to try with the easy one. And I do think, honestly, you could apply it to some hard stuff, but I think you have to understand the limitations of it. So again, I had this channel in my head. I had an idea. I want to help people. I want to help people like me. And I started thinking about some of the things I could do. Well, I could share with them the tips and tricks I was going to do. Right? And as I was thinking more about this, I started feeling like I can do this. This is a reality. Right? I felt like this was doable. I felt like this, you know, like it can be done. I believed it can be done 100% in my head. And so then I did it. Okay, because when I believe that, if you truly believe it, then you have to act it through. You have to act like it. Because if I believed it could be done 100% and I believed it was done, and I should think that should be the key. Acted like it is done. If you truly believe it, then you're gonna act like it, right? Let me get that clear. What that means. Like it wasn't like, okay, the YouTube channel's already out there. No, it's like I believe that this plan is going to come into reality. Absolutely, I truly believe it. Well, anyone who truly believes that obviously has to act on it. And I think that is where some of the problem comes in with people with manifestation. And I think this is where sometimes when I listen to Neville, he isn't very clear. Like you know, it's been a long time since I've heard his stuff. I kind of look at his stuff as very feel good. I think there's some great material in it, personally. But it didn't, for me, I just want to say is that, you know, just my personal take on it is that it was, I'm very practical. And so I looked at Neville as being very spiritual. So it's very difficult for me to understand. Now I understand it a lot better, okay? But for me, it took a practicality to it, to understand it, okay? So, when I'm looking at this, my channel's done, not done. I have the idea in my head. I feel like, hey, I can do this, right? And I truly believe it, right? This can be done. So I start feeling like it. Then what do? Well, I went on YouTube, I started making it. Made my first video, right? When I made a video, I had to have the idea for the video in my head before I made it. That's what manifestation is. That right there. Okay? And I want to be clear. When people tell you, you know, oh, you can manifest a lottery win. Okay? That is both true and not true. Could you manifest the lottery win? So the example I gave was easy. Let's go with this one. Let's go with something which seems impossible. Could you manifest winning the Powerball? Right now, I truly believe this is one that's hard for me. So I don't really know. And the reason I say that is that I think that through the method of how I understand manifestation to be, right? What it would mean is I have to 100% believe that I'm going to win that Powerball. I have to, with every aspect of my being. Okay? Because creating a YouTube channel, 7 months ago was an impossibility for me. I got my mind to the point where I could accept it and I could believe in it. And that's creating a YouTube channel, something that has very low barrier to entry. Is easy. Well, the barrier, the probability of winning the Powerball is extremely difficult. Okay? So how much stronger is going to have to be your faith and your belief to manifest that? Right? You are going to have to believe that you can win that honestly with every part of your being every single day for how many years? You have to believe it is done. Right? And so this is the point where I think I personally, I hate to be negative, but I'm gonna say something negative. I just don't think it's practical for anybody to do. Okay? That thought that I can manifest a lottery win, right? I'm not telling you not to do it. If you think you can do it, go ahead. But I know for myself it wouldn't be practical. Because my belief is not that strong. Do I believe if you had that type of mind of total focus, right? Where you could honestly focus on that thought, believe it was done, act as if it was done, believe it to be true. You know it's going to happen, right? You're acting as if it's done. You believe it with every fiber of your being. And when I say this, understand how easy it is for me to say this. We all know how difficult this is, right? To do. But just, I say these words, if you could do that for how many ever years it would take, can I say that it can't happen? No, I can't. In fact, I think it, at the point I'm at now in life, I think it probably would happen. But I don't know that doubt wouldn't slip into your mind if it took years, that you could keep that conviction. Okay? Maybe you could. I know that I couldn't. So that is the concern, how I view manifestation. I have a concern when people are like, hey, you're gonna think about, I don't know, $1,000 and it's just going to appear into your life, right? That kind of thought bothers me. I think it gives manifestation a bad rap, right? Because people just think, oh, I can just casually think this, maybe I'll pray upon it, and I'll have this belief. The simple fact is that you have to, the part of manifestation is you have to feel it through and act as if it was done. And that doesn't mean you go out and start spending a bunch of money. The idea is that, let me give another example. I think sports is an easy one. Not easy, but it's easier to imagine. imagine that you hear this from athletes all the time, actually. So Serena Williams or Michael Jordan or Roger Federer or whatever, you all hear from them when they were kids, they saw themselves winning their favorite tournament. In fact, I forgot who it was, but I remember one of these championships, it was in basketball. He said when he won the championship, asked how it felt. He said, I had envisioned this in my head 1,000 times as a child. Well, when he had that vision, what he did then is he went out and acted upon it. He practiced every single day because he understood, I'm envisioning myself as an NBA championship. If you believe it to be true, believe it's to be done, how would an NBA champion act? If you truly believe that, how would they act? You would act like that. Well, they obviously would practice. They would live, sleep, and eat basketball. And that is what this young man did. And so in some sense, you could say, in some sense, in an absolute sense, you could say he manifested that into his life. You always hear with business, I had a vision. These people have the vision first in their head, and they have the belief it can be done. Right? They believe it can be done, and then they act on it. And they act as if it was to be done. And what does that mean? If I believe my business is going to be a success, I'm going to act like it's done. What does that mean? Well, I'm going to do the things in order to get it done. And that's where I have the problem with the lottery, because it's, for me, I don't know what the practical part of is of how would you act as if it's done. Like for me, for this YouTube channel, it's like, okay, I believe this YouTube channel can be done. Right? I have the belief it can be done. I'm going to manifest it into reality. Right? Act like it's done. Okay, I'm going to feel it. I have the feeling. Well, what do I do then? Well, I start doing it. And it's very easy. I start acting upon this. Because that's what I would do. If I have the total belief, right? I'm going to have a successful YouTube channel where I help people out. What do I got to do? What would that person do? He would make YouTube videos. That's what I'm doing, right? So I hate to harp on this, right? But this is kind of in my nature. I know right now you're probably like, wow, this guy does have OCD. But this is the key. It just bugs me because I feel like manifestation, if someone had explained it to me like this, I would have understood it better. Simply put, I would have. But instead I got explained with what I felt like was like a hocus pocus method. That's why I was always so skeptical of it. Oh yeah, just think you're gonna get $1,000, you're gonna get $1,000. It's like, what? No, right? So then you try it. Oh, I feel like I'm gonna get $1,000. $1,000 doesn't come. Oh, this is crap. Well, that's not how it works. Okay? And so you have to be careful because there's a lot of people out there who are going to do that. When I look at Neville, I really like Neville, but like I wonder, like when he talks about the couch, he's like, he manifested a couch into his life and it just appeared there. I'm not doubting him. I actually believe him 100%. And I know he tries to explain the feeling he had with that, right? But the problem I have with it is that I don't think that for a lot of us that is practical. Okay? again, there's nothing wrong with what he's saying, because I do think for a lot of people, I do think there are people that could do that, right? Because if you look through it, what he's talking about, I remember that one video where he talked about the couch. He's like, he had absolute belief. He acted as if it was already there. It was already done. In his mind, he didn't let doubt come into it with that thought. And then his couch came. The universe, and it sounds wonky, but who am I to question him if he did that or not? But the simple fact is I could never relate to that. And now I know why. I know that man must have had an absolute insane level of control over his mind. In Hermeticism, they call him a mage, right? He is a very high level mage. And when you hear his story, it's amazing that he went to that point. But he did, I believe he schooled under somebody in Kabbalah, right? And maybe one day I'll get to that point. I don't know. I'm just happy being grounded right now. I'm just happy finally being awake a little instead of always being unconscious, just for me personally. But anyways, if you're like me, so again, I'm not out here talking bad about anybody, with manifesting. Someone will say, hey, I manifested a lottery win. I'm not saying it cannot happen. All I'm trying to say is people in my situation, I don't believe that is the most practical way to go about it, right? So maybe later on, when you get to be, you're walking in the desert 40 days and 40 nights, fasting, you can manifest the couch into your life through that method. It's neither here or there. I'm not doubting it. What I'm saying is that at the stage I'm at, manifestation to me, and I think to a lot of people like me, is better thought of in a more practical sense. And it's funny is that the practical sense actually applies to the higher level mages too. It's just that they're able to apply it better, I guess you could say. And hopefully that makes sense. Manifestation is absolutely 100% real. Okay, but for those of us like me, what it means is you have to have the thought in your head, you have to believe you're going to do it, and then you have to act like it's done. You have to feel it, feel that it's done. And what does that mean? That means that you're going to do the actions, you're going to carry them out. So I've been wanting to do this video, right? But I didn't have the belief in myself to do it. In fact, I had a lot of negative thoughts because I was like, boy, I can ramble like crazy. Do I want to put myself out there? What if I say something wrong? If somebody uses against me and laughs at me or something like that, right? And so I had, driven to Milwaukee when I was going to start this video. And then I deleted it. And actually today I started it twice and I deleted it. And who knows, maybe I'll end up deleting this. But I don't think so. I think I'm going to keep this one. It's long, whatever. If you stuck with me this far, then you must be as crazy as I am. I'm glad you're on the journey with me. So, manifestation is real. And when you want to go into it deeper, kind of the Hermetics, they have this idea, they call it the all. And the all is sort of like a universal mind. It's hard to explain. In fact, the all is unknowable and unexplainable. Whenever you try to explain it, it's not enough. But it's kind of this idea that everything is already manifested in the all. It already exists. And physics actually has a a similar thought. They would call it the many worlds, Hugh Everett's many worlds, right? Simply the notion where you take the Schrodinger wave equation and it doesn't, in a sense, collapse. What happens is that every part of it exists. So instead of just being this wave function that, is a tool used to predict the probability of where a particle is, the wave function is actually, I guess you could say, a description of physical reality in every single sense of the word. Every particle position exists. This is a very interesting thought. So I'm going to go off on a tangent a little bit. Maybe you don't know much about physics. I won't go too deep into this. But basically, with the many worlds, people think of it, at least when I talk to people, they kind of think of it as all these separate universes. But the truth is that a particle, universes interact. There are some universes that are very, I guess you could say, best way to say is close in identity, and they interact. And I guess, let me just give you an example. I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head here. Probably a terrible thing to do. You have a particle A that's going along a path, and you have like a refractive piece of mirror or something, and there's a 50-50 chance that the particle can go left or right at this mirror. Okay? And sorry, I just had something I had to do there with the thing. 50-50 chance it can go left or right at the mirror. Okay, particle A, you shoot it through, and it goes on. If it goes on A or B, the path, or wait, sorry guys, I'm getting this screwed up. I said I should do this on that. You have a particle A, it's going to a mirror. At the mirror, it has a 50-50 chance of going left or right. We'll call those paths X and Y. Okay? However, if it goes down X or Y, you have another mirror that refracts it back so that it hits another point where it will combine. The paths will combine. So I guess what you could think of as a line going into the middle of a side of a rectangle box, right? Now the particle can go, it hits the rectangle on the side, it can go to the left or the right. It will get redirected at either angle straight, and it'll get redirected again towards each other, and it will combine. Okay? So, in many worlds, this particle will go, it will hit that, it will be one universe, it hits that point, and now it's two universes, right? Universe X, where it goes to the left, universe Y, where it goes to the right. And when it finishes going through the rectangle and it comes back to that one point at the middle of the other side, there'll be another mirror there that will redirect both particles into the same path, right? To the exact same path. And now those universes recombine. Isn't that an amazing thought? Like, I don't know, it's that part of it, it's almost like comic books, right? So you would have the Flash vibrating between universes. And some of these universes, their vibration would get so close that they would, take over another universe, or its effects would affect another universe. And essentially, that's true. And it's kind of funny because that's, Hermeticism, if you read the Kabbalion, it has this idea that everything vibrates. And the biggest skeptic in the world, Sabina Hasselfelder, I shouldn't say she's the biggest skeptic. She's agnostic. She says, religion doesn't matter to her. she had this awesome video she did, and I'm not a fan of hers because when I look at her, she reminds me, I think, too much of my prior self. Except for I wasn't nearly as accomplished, but sometimes she's so skeptical of stuff, it drives me nuts. She has an awesome video though, where she's like, well, because she's very honest. She's like, in a way, everything does vibrate. This is true, because that's essentially, in quantum physics, quantum mechanics, we know that a particle is basically, what is a particle? It's just the smallest vibration in a quantum field, right? So Hermeticists were saying this, this has been a thought in Hermeticism for a long time. Some people would say thousands of years, but we don't have proof of that because it was largely an oral tradition. But let's just say they thought of this for thousands of years. I mean, I guess you could say, I don't know how far back it goes. I shouldn't say anything about that. I don't really know. I haven't looked into if that thought in the Kybalion was actually written, how long ago it was written. But that's neither here nor there. What we do know is that thought in Hermeticism, it actually coincides with what our most advanced science tells us right now. Everything does move. Everything vibrates, right? So sorry about going off on that tangent. That was kind of a big one. I'll try to stay off of the physics. But when we have this idea then in the many worlds, or in this Hermeticism idea of the all, or you could say even in with Krishna, right, in the Bhagavad Gita, where he reveals himself to Arjuna, everything physically possible is in a sense already manifested, or the template, I guess you could say. If you're a programmer, think of it like it's a template that already exists, right? And you're just going to instantiate it, So it's a class. You can even say it's a class. The class for everything already exists. And when you manifest it, you instantiate it into reality. Right? So when I look at becoming the best version of me, manifesting the best version of me, that version out there already exists, and I just have to change my vibrational frequency to match that. And when I'm saying this right now, I got a big smile on my face, because it's just like, this stuff is so foreign to my way of thinking, and I'm just smiling at the fact that it all makes sense to me now in a wacky way. Like, I can't even explain it. I mean, I don't know. I could try to explain it to you with physics, or something, but it's true. It's true. The best version of me exists already. It's already out there. The best version of Ruben exists. And all I'm doing right now is I'm manifesting it, right? I'm manifesting this best version of myself. And I'm doing that by changing my vibrational frequency through my thoughts, right? I'm changing who I am by getting control of my mind. Before, I let my mind control itself, and it built a prison for me. Now, whatever my true nature is, I don't know, is controlling my thoughts, and it's manifesting the best version of myself. See how all this stuff is just like, if you came from a background like I did, and you said stuff like that, you would just be like, slap yourself in the head and be, wow. I mean, but I don't know, I can't argue with a word of it anymore. Trust me, I was the guy who wanted to argue everything before. When you are in the prison I was in, you will look to spread that suffering to others, by always arguing and debating with them. So Not anymore. We're out here just manifesting our best versions of ourselves, right? I really like the Hermeticism idea of the all, though, because it matches up somewhat what I would consider a scientific worldview. You know, with the many worlds, or with Max Tegmark's. Let's go beyond many worlds. Let's go to Max Tegmark's mathematical universe, where everything he says is essentially math. How much, you know, that just corresponds to the notion of the all perfectly. And somebody out there that's a Hermeticism or Hermetic, I say, well, Ruben, it's not perfect because the all is beyond that, right? And I can understand that notion, but I would like to point out that in mathematics, there are things within mathematics that in a sense are beyond mathematics, right? That are unknowable. And remember, when Max Tegmark is talking about his mathematical universe, he's not talking like the number 2 exists. What he's talking about is it's just the structure. The universe is based upon this rule set. So again, it's like a program, right? When we make a program, or if you're a programmer, you're essentially just coding logic, and this logic makes, you know, it's just logic. It's math, essentially. But it makes this rule set, and then from that rule set, stuff manifests, right? Classes, objects. If you're doing object-oriented programming, you know, or even in functional programming, you still have, you know, things that are instantiated, things that manifest to be used. So that's what he's kind of saying, is that this rule set manifests this world. It manifests every possible world or thing that is, you know, covered by the logic rules. Logic is math, by mathematics. Well, in math, there's unknowable things. Irrational numbers, in a sense, are unknowable, right? I have, you know, the concept of infinity. You have lots of things, you know. I mean, so when we say the all is unknowable, you can say that is too. But I understand if you want to say, but the all, if you're Hermetic, you might say the all is still beyond that. There's nothing that can encapsulate it, you know. Whenever you try to encapsulate it, it's still beyond that, and that's fine. So, okay, guys, I got an hour and 13 minutes in. If you made it this far, I mean, you are a true warrior. And I'm so happy you did. And even if you did, if you watched the mini, I'm happy you did. But if you're here with me, I appreciate it. Okay? You know, this world is made of love and peace. That's what we're here for. Our egos are what bring war and fighting and stuff like this. I know, because I lived in my ego for a long time. Like I said, I wanted to debate everybody. I wanted to argue with everybody. I wanted, you know. Why? Why does the ego want to do that? Because the ego is so scared. It's this terrified little thing. And it, you know, if the ego, if you think you're your ego, and the ego is comprised of its thoughts, and the ego finds out it's wrong, all it can do is lash out. That's all it can do. Right? It has no choice but to do that, because its very existence is threatened. So when people used to, you know, when I used to get in these stupid debates when I was a kid or whatever, not when I was a kid, but, you know, my 20s, which now feels like a kid, it was because my ego was threatened. And because I identified with that. And so if it was to be wrong, I would feel like I'm going to be, it's the same as death, right? Killing my ego is killing me. Right? So it would have to lash out and defend itself because it doesn't want to die. Ego is this terrified little thing. It wants to ensure survival at all costs. Right? And it's not that it's bad necessarily. It's just a tool. And in fact, once you utilize it as a tool, it's like the ego gets comforted. It's like, hey, it doesn't want, I don't think it truly desires to be on its own. I think it wants to be connected with the inner you. And that's how it best expresses itself, the ego. Not having to be you. But when we think it's you, that's when we misuse it, and then it gets out of control. And we see this all throughout the world, right? Every single war that's ever been started is started over ego. Look at Putin. Look at the U.S., with Saddam. Good, everything. And I'm not saying these things are bad or not. You might say, hey, we had to go after Saddam. Maybe we did. I don't know. I'm just saying, if Saddam provoked us, then that was because of his ego, right? We went after him, it was, because our egos got hurt. It's just, I'm not saying, and this is the way things work, right? Like these things, they must play out. And that's a little bit of understanding that I've gained from Hinduism. So I look at this world and I understand that these things, they must play out. So I don't, it is what it is, and you have to accept these things, right? Always have to accept reality, how it is. To deny it is suffering. Once you just accept how things are, and when you accept it, doesn't mean, so if something terrible is happening, it doesn't mean that you don't do something. But you can't reject it in your head and create a false world. Now, let me give you an example. Can't believe I'm starting this hour and 17 minutes in. I mean, we might hit 2 hours. No, we're not going to hit 2. I'm going to be done pretty soon. Final example. People at the World Trade Center. I remember these stories I heard of the heroes that were there. Every single one of them that I heard, they would begin like this. The person get questioned, oh, you saved so many people. What were you thinking? And the person would simply say, I wasn't thinking. They say something like, I wasn't thinking. My brain just turned off and I ran back in that building, got this person, brought him out, ran back in, got another, right? They were in the moment. They weren't thinking, oh God, this can't be happening. Oh, terrible, terrible, terrible. Because if they were thinking that, they would have been overwhelmed by the situation. And they wouldn't have been able to help anybody. What happened was, in that moment, they went into a total state of being, of isness. They were one in the moment. They didn't question the moment. They accepted it fully, and then they acted and saved people's lives. And you hear that all the time. Okay? And it's not to say like the brain didn't work, but it wasn't like they're sitting there contemplating if this should be happening or debating reality, right? If you're doing that, that's when you get overtaken. My guess is the people, and I'm not being mean, but the people who couldn't act probably couldn't accept the moment. Their brains were just overloaded, which is absolutely, listen, this is not a criticism. It's absolutely understandable. And an event as terrible as that, or any terrible event, that somebody could be overwhelmed by the moment. How could this be happening? But this is what Hinduism tells us, right? And Hermetics and all these other wisdoms, all these ancient wisdoms and all these, you know, that are out there. Heaven is neither here or there. If it's over there, the birds will beat you. You know, it's in the water, the fish will beat you. Heaven is right here and right now. We have to accept this moment for what it is. Stop pretending it isn't what it is. Just accept it. And then act from that. Right? Act from that. So you might say, well, how does that work with the total, you know, with the manifestation? You're saying you have this thought. Well, with the manifestation, the way it works is you have belief, right? And then you act upon that belief, right? So I hope that makes sense. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I don't really have any much more to say. I mean, I actually have more. I could go on for hours. Just because this topic is so fascinating to me. But I do got to drive somewhere, so I better start paying some attention because I'm in a larger city and I don't know where I'm at. I got to go to the airport. So, okay, everybody. I am signing off. All of you. I wish every single one of you the best from the bottom of my heart. I used to have this issue where seeing other people succeed was hard for me because it always made me feel bad about myself. But I have gotten over that issue. I actually, just in the past year, it's like, you know, because I even had an issue with my kids. It was just so weird. My ego was so bad. Truly, I was in a bad place. But it can and does get better. Okay, I gotta find out where to go. Take care.